So thank you all for joining. I guess if it's anything like we're finding at the moment, lots of video calls at the moment. So we're really grateful for you to take your time and add another one onto the list. So just a quick introduction really to myself. So I'm James Green. I'm head of data analytics and AI for Ancuris. Also on the call doing some presenting will be Bailey Sharp Ledger. He's a data analyst and has worked on the platform that we're going to show you. So a little bit of introduction into Ancuris. So we're a premier Google partner. So that means that we work very close with Google. We specialize in all Google products, and that really is in three forms. So G Suite and Chrome on the left-hand side. So trying to produce a digital workplace for companies. We have in the center there business transformation, so we do some really good application development. And my area on the right-hand side there is data analytics and AI. And we try and focus on producing insights that are actionable. So we'd much rather produce one or two insights that everyone's clear on what action they need to take to get value, rather than create lots and lots of dashboards that people don't really know what to do with. Data analytics and AI. So this is our mission statement. So we understand data is challenging. We help our clients regain control of their data, promoting innovation, simplification, and high-value actionable insights. Just a quick overview of the services that we offer. So three pillars: data management on the left, so all about centralizing your data. In the middle, AI and machine learning. So we are on a number of alpha products with Google. What that means is it's basically machine learning and AI that isn't yet in the public domain. So we really are on the leading edge, and some of the stuff that we've been feeding back to Google is now going into those products. And then finally, on the right-hand side, you take all this time to centralize and do machine learning. It's really important to present that in a very clear and engaging way. So that's a little bit about what we do. We have a number of strategic partners. So Google Cloud, Looker for analytics, and Fivetran for data ingestion. It's worth just noting for Google Cloud, if some of you might not have used it, there is a really good free tier. So if you want to have a play with the products, for example, BigQuery, their enterprise data warehouse, you can use the full product. You get $300 of free credit. You can store a terabyte of data for $10. So that $300 really does go far, and you can really get some hands-on play really for no cost down. Just a little intro on Looker. So Looker is a modern analytics and visualization platform. Bailey will be doing a demo of the platform that we've built that uses Looker. And if some of you might not have heard of Fivetran. So Fivetran is a modern ingestion platform, and we'll be showing how we've used that in the platform too. So we come to the topic of this, which is all around cash flow. So my background, so I have a lot of experience in financial services. So I was at Goldman Sachs for 12 years. I was with a restructuring consultancy called Alex Partners for 5 years. And so and a big part of any company's health really is their cash. And there's a really good quote in the top left there. So turnover is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is reality. And this is, I just wanted to, just to remind us, obviously we know what happened with Lehman Brothers, but if we look at that New York Times quote on the top right there, I mean, that was dated 13th of June, 2007. And if you'd have read that, you wouldn't have been, in my opinion, stupid to go and invest your money in it, because it was a glowing report on Lehman. And if you look at their profits, annual profit in 2007 was just over $4 billion. So, profit is one thing, but cash flow really is very, very important. So with cash flow management and forecasting, there's a number of challenges at the moment that CFOs and finance directors are facing. So the first one is that future revenues are fluctuating drastically. In the nature of the situation we're in right now, it's for certain industries, revenues may have dried up completely. The second point on here is this need to try and forecast what your cash flow is going to look like over the next 12 months is basically, one of the things that a CFO has to worry about. And again, that's very, very difficult at the moment because there's lots of these different scenarios that they need to model. So we've got things, for example, like furloughing staff, extending payment terms. Do people need to downsize? What happens if we defer that? There's emergency loans. So there's lots of these new, I guess, options to CFOs. A lot of them they're not really used to. And the last point on here is we're seeing that it's very difficult for most companies at the moment to actually do this forecasting. So the data, things like their invoices, etc., tend to be locked in accountancy systems, and it's very difficult to get that data out to and to produce these models. And we're finding that sometimes this process can take weeks, and it's not a very efficient process. So this is where Ancora's CFO Lab was born. So CFO Lab is an AI data analytics platform, and it's designed to revolutionize cash flow management. So if you think of how something like TomTom, revolutionized us getting from A to B when we were driving our cars, this is a little bit like what CFO Lab is. It's a digital assistant for a CFO. So it's aimed at CFOs across all industries and regions. We've specifically made it very easy to use. So, for example, all of the input that you can that a CFO can enter is all done via Google Sheets. Yes, generally finance people really like spreadsheets. This is what they spend most of their time in, and it leverages leading machine learning and AI. So it's very complex under the hood, but it's very simple to use by the user. So the top green squares at the top, there's three main objectives with CFO Lab. We want to improve near-term cash flow, enable people to model complex what-if scenarios, and have the ability to, using AI, to help with forecasting. Now, if you look at the square on the right-hand side, essentially, these boxes just show the inputs. So we've got invoices. So we take, generally, to get the most out of the AI, you really want at least a year's worth of invoices, payments and credit notes, individual bank transactions, and then we have a number of inputs that the CFO will enter, and we'll show you that in a little bit. And basically, we're ingesting that information into Google Cloud Platform, specifically into BigQuery, and then we use Looker to produce insights to allow CFOs to take action and obtain value. So CFO Lab uses our data architecture for a modern data warehouse platform. So this is something that we've worked on over a number of years. The key takeaway here really is that we use an extract, load, and transform paradigm. So very different from how you used a data warehouse, 10 years ago when it was all ETL. ELT is the modern way, and it is, in my mind, far superior. And what that means essentially is we're extracting and loading data from all these various sources in their raw form into BigQuery. So because BigQuery, can handle huge, you can easily have 100 billion row table in there and still do a full scan on it. It can handle large volumes. It's very, very, very cheap to store. So it now allows us just to ingest this data in its raw form, and then we can transform it, and then we can run our machine learning analytics and display it in things like Looker. So this is kind of a general diagram as to how we deal with a typical project. For CFO Lab specifically, for example, we have Xero is an example accounting system that you might come across where the invoices might be stored. In that example, we would use Fivetran to ingest. But if you used a platform like Sage doesn't have a connector for Fivetran. So in that case, you probably use something like Cloud Composer, which is hosted Airflow, to extract that data. And these are some of the tools that we tend to like. So Google BigQuery, some of you may be familiar with this, some of you may not. Google BigQuery is essentially Google's data warehouse platform. So if you look at something like Azure, it's equivalent to SQL DW. It's extremely fast. It's very economical in terms of cost, and it's very secure. And really, the main advantage of BigQuery is if you look at a traditional data warehouse, either if it's on-prem or some of the competitors, cloud warehouses, there's still a lot of performance tuning. There's a lot of deployment that you have to think about. BigQuery, there's absolutely nothing. You literally just turn it on and you start loading data into it and you start selecting data out of it. So firsthand, it seems really simple, but it is simple, but it's extremely fast. So performance just becomes something that you just really don't need to worry about, which is a really good thing. And to get the data into BigQuery, we favor a product called Fivetran. So Fivetran is a modern data ingestion platform. So for example, if we have a client and they have their data in QuickBooks or Xero, which are two very common accountancy packages, Fivetran has a connector for both of these. And what it basically allows you to do is to extract data out of those platforms into a target, whether it be BigQuery here, you can support Amazon Redshift, Snowflake. And the really nice thing about Fivetran is this is no coding, as it's got here. So if you imagine, if you try to engineer this, for example, Xero, there's probably something like 30 tables underneath. To replicate that data, say on a 5-minute basis, is going to take a lot of engineering. With Fivetran, you can literally set that up in a couple of hours. So it's a really, really good product. Just to give you an overview of what it looks like. So on the left-hand side here, we are doing a Salesforce connection. And literally all you do is you choose your target. So if you use BigQuery, you choose a data set that you want to load it into. Choose a Salesforce connector, authenticate with your Salesforce instance. Then on the right-hand side, you just pick the tables that you want. You choose how frequently you want them to be synced, like anything down to 5 minutes. So for CFO Lab, we tend to do it hourly and then sync. And then that's it. It will just manage dropping that data into BigQuery. And if I create an invoice in Xero, within the hour that new invoice is then replicated into BigQuery. So yeah, so really good. If you've not used Fivetran, I really would recommend it. It's just it's a game changer in my opinion. Okay, and now we're going to just hand over to my colleague Bailey, and he's going to give you an overview of CFO Lab. And this is looking at Looker. So Looker, just as a recap, is a visualization tool, part of Google, equivalent to something like if you've used Tableau before, or maybe Power BI or Click. So it's that kind of equivalent. I'm just going to, we've just got to adjust the resolution on this. Be careful not to click, otherwise it skips the slide. There we go. I'm going to go full screen.
Thank you, Jamie.
Okay, great, Bailey. Okay, over to you.
So, welcome to the accounts receivable dashboard. This is one of the first places you will come to in CFO Lab. And the first thing you'll see is at the top, we have the key statistics you need to know at a glance. These will tell you about your receivable invoices and what status category they fall into, whether they are settled as paid, still outstanding, and so on. The next section deals with the invoice status, which is the most important, those which are overdue. When it comes to deciding who to chase first, CFO Lab offers a helping hand. Ordering by the amount owed, weighted by the days overdue, you can see straight away how you need to be prioritizing your cash recovery. This tile is followed by a table where you can easily see the details of all of the overdue invoices. Thanks to the AutoML semantic layer, you can right-click on the invoice ID to get a link straight to the invoice within your accounting package of choice. And you can also click straight on the company name to see all overdue invoices from that company. These extra actions really enhance your workflow within CFO Lab. The upcoming payments section deals with invoices sent but you're not yet expected. On the left here, we have a breakdown by days until due. But do you ever find yourself wondering whether an invoice just sent will be paid on time? Using the excellent AutoML offering from Google, more on that later, we split these invoices further to show those we expect to be paid on time and those we expect to be paid late. And if you'd like to learn a little bit more about how AutoML came to that conclusion, we offer the ability to drill down into the certainty to see the underlying features that went into that prediction model. Last but not least, the settled section analyzes those invoices which are settled. We have put together a suite of graphs to unearth previously buried insights into your data. From the payment compliance of your customers, are they generally sticking to term dates? To the lost opportunity cost from late payments, what could you have done if everyone had paid on time?
Okay, thank you, Bailey. That was really, really good. Okay, I'm just going to... Okay, so Bailey's now going to just walk you through the cluster page.
Yep. So while you get that set up, James, I'll just give a little prelude as to what the clustering is dealing with.
Yeah, okay, thank you, Bailey.
This is another dashboard included as part of the CFO Lab offering. We'll touch more on machine learning techniques in a moment, but as a brief intro, clustering is a technique to discover some naturally occurring and actionable patterns within your data set. Feel free to play, please, James. So on this dashboard, I shall first direct your attention to the cluster evaluation table. This provides information about the clusters themselves. We give them a friendly name to summarize their statistics. We can see that the comfort zone contains the customers who are good payers with timely and complete payments. Thankfully, the tile above also shows that this contains the majority of our client base with a count of 56. The watch list cluster, on the other hand, contains 7 of our customers, and the evaluation table tells us that this is the group infamous for being late with their payments or even not paying at all. Down below, we have an exhaustive list of which cluster our customers were assigned to, as well as the features which dictated that assignment. Why were they put into that cluster? If you're interested to find where a particular customer ended up, there's no need to scroll. You can simply find them with the filter at the top in Looker, with its handy autocomplete, and then hit run, and Looker, as a incredibly performant platform, finds it in no time at all. Up next, James will take a little closer look at what is powering that AI going on in the background.
Okay, thank you, Bailey. That was really good. Okay, I'm just going to... So I'm just going to put this back into present mode. Let's wait while it loads. Okay. Yeah, so thanks, Bailey. That was really good. So just what we wanted to touch on from a technical standpoint, some of the features that Bailey was talking through there. So one of the things that we saw on the last screen that Bailey was on was the clustering. So just wanted to talk a little bit on how we did that. So that's a good example of unsupervised learning, and we use BigQuery ML. So BigQuery ML is a really nice machine learning capability that comes with GCP that integrates with BigQuery. And the thing we really, really like about it is it's very SQL based. So it makes productionizing very, very simple. Find that you don't have to necessarily extend, out to languages like Python. And it just, and we'll show you how we've integrated with DBT, but it just makes that whole productionizing of data science models, which can be challenging, very, very straightforward. So if you're not familiar with unsupervised learning and clustering, essentially what it's trying to do is it's unsupervised because as Bailey showed, there are all those kind of features about our customers, how many invoices have they paid, what percentage have they paid, etc. And what clustering does is we tell it the number of clusters that we'd like. So for CFO Lab, we use 4, and the algorithm basically decides what are those clusters, what do those clusters look like, and then it will assign the customers to them. So it's a very, very good application of unsupervised learning for this use case. And one of the things that we're looking at advancing at the moment is the ability to track those clusters over time. So I can start to say, okay, this company was, maybe was a great payer last month, but actually now it's downgraded into a cluster that's not as good, and therefore I probably want to notify the CFO that that's happened. Now, as I said before, productionizing some of this is very difficult, but the DBT that we use for our transformation within BigQuery makes this really, really simple. So what you're looking at on the right-hand side, so this is an example of how we actually built that clustering model in CFO Lab. So the select statement on the right-hand side shows the company ID, which is a thing that we're going to be clustering, and then all the features about each of those customers. And this screenshot is from DBT, basically called a model. And what this is essentially doing is using BigQuery ML, it's going to train a clustering model and assign these companies into those clusters. And the really nice thing about DBT, the reason I personally really like it, so it's SQL based. So some of the other kind of ETL offerings are things like data flow, Java or Python based. And I just think a lot of people out there, they know SQL. So why not have your transformation layer written in SQL? The second thing that's really good about DBT is you can build macros. So we've built a number of macros. So an example here is we've built a macro to execute a k-means cluster. So that's what that materialization is here. And what this basically does is it allows, I'd argue this is very, very little code here to basically do an unstructured k-means cluster. So so this logic at the top is just kind of configuring what you want to cluster on. So we want to cluster on company ID. We're going to use a model type of k-means. We want 4 clusters. And basically when I run this, so DBT makes it very, very easy to productionize. This is just part of our transformation layer, just as if this was just a basic SQL statement that, say, produced a table, just it happens to be executing a machine learning model. So really, really easy on the deployment front. And just a note there with BigQuery, so the power that BigQuery has is just mind-blowing, really. So you can run large clusters like this, and they execute in seconds. The second piece that Bailey demoed there within CFO Lab is the supervised machine learning. This is where we was basically trying to predict which of your invoices are actually going to be paid. So this is an example of a binary classification model. And how we actually did this is we used a different tool within GCP called AutoML. And I'm just going to give you a quick overview of that. So AutoML is, and it's really worth reading this twice. So it uses AI to basically produce ML models. So if you think about that, it's using AI to produce AI. It's essentially what it's doing. Really, with very, very impressive products. And essentially what you do is you create a feature set. So for our CFO Lab problem of predicting invoices, we have to basically generate a set of what's happened in the past. So all of our invoices, whether they were paid or not. And we use that as a training set. So the algorithm knows what the outcome is. So that's why it's, it's a supervised learning model. And then you basically feed that into AutoML and you say, okay, here's my training set, here's my outcome. You choose how many hours you want it to train for, between 1 and 24, and it charges you. There's no license fee or anything. It just literally charges you, I think it's something like $19 per hour. So for CFO Lab, we just did 1 hour. So it cost $19 and it trained and picked which data science model it thought was most appropriate. And then it optimized those features, which is, yeah, it's mind blowing really when you think about what it's actually doing. So in our example here for CFO Lab, so on the left-hand side, this is just a screenshot of AutoML in the GCP console. It's very easy to use. There's zero code. So you just upload your data set. So we upload our training set and we run it for an hour. And an hour later, it comes up with a model. And you can see in our case, it came up with a binary classification model. Interestingly, accuracy, I mean, very, very high, so 90.2%, which is, in data science terms, that's very, very accurate. And the nice thing about it is it kind of gives you a little bit of an insight into what it did. Now, there is an element of a black box about it, which you kind of expect, but you do at least see. So here, for example, on the right-hand side, these are all the features that we fed in, and you can see that AutoML tells us which one was most significant. So this is really interesting. So, for example, the number of paid invoices happen to be the most significant feature in this run, and it'll produce things like confusion matrix that we can see on the right there. So, really, really good product. And then the final piece we wanted just to talk through was the forecasting element that we support in CFO Lab. So I just wanted to remind you of this challenges slide. And if you remember, it was this whole problem of trying to manage these what-if scenarios. And this is another use case that CFO Lab does. So how we've done that is we've made it really, really simple to capture data. So we have an Excel, or sorry, a Google Sheet that's where the CFO basically can input the details on the scenario they want to model. So in this example here, I'm creating a scenario called furlough. I want to explore, furloughing employees, and I can put various information high level about this scenario, including, for example, what the current details are on furloughing, what the cap is, what percentage the government will pay. So I enter that in that tab. Then I go over to the payables tab, and here I can basically amend all my supplier payments. So we use an embedded app script within Sheets. I click the refresh button on here and it will populate this sheet with all my suppliers. And then on the right-hand side of the sheet, I can basically make amendments at supplier level. So for example, here I'm extending some payment days. Here I'm actually overriding and generating a new invoice amount that's going to be every month. And on this example, I'm saying, well, actually, we've got a payment plan set up with this supplier. We're actually going to pay, £1,000 a month. Similar thing on the receivables side. So remember, that's money coming in. That's money from our customers. Again, we can model individual amendments. Here we want to capture anticipated future payments. So on this tab, we can enter, so for example, here I've got a new project which is going to bring money in, and I've got a new payable, which is money out, and I can just enter those. So if you're, depending on what your business is, if your business is like us and you've got new projects coming in, then you would basically model those. And there's scope to maybe link those into other tools like Salesforce. And finally, we have a payroll module. So payroll is probably one of the largest expenses, as you can imagine, for most companies. It's also the thing that you really don't want to run out of cash on. You don't want to not pay your staff. So very, very critical that you get that right. On this tab, essentially you've got a 12-month view. So I've got my staffing bill, so 400K at the moment on these examples. My PAYE tax, my pension amounts, any commission or bonuses. And then on the right-hand side, this is where I'm able to model this. So here I'm saying, okay, in June, I'm going to model 80% of staff furloughed. Same in July, and then that's going to slowly ramp down over the following year till we get to June next year, and it's going to be 0. So you can do lots of different tweaks on your payroll. And essentially, what CFO Lab does is then it computes that forecast in real time. And I think this is important just from a technical standpoint, to understand and this really showcases the power of BigQuery. So just to recap, we've got all of our static invoice information in BigQuery. So for example, that might have come from 0. We've got all of those inputs that I just described on the left-hand side in those spreadsheets. And what we've enabled to do, really because of the power of BigQuery and the way that Looker works, is I can go onto a dashboard in Looker, which is the forecast. I can refresh it, and in real time, BigQuery will basically compute what the forecast looks like. And to give you an idea on performance, so a company we're working with, a global retailer at the moment, CFO Lab, they've got about 8,000 invoices. It takes about 12 seconds to refresh that dashboard in Looker. When we did some scale testing, we scaled it to 70 million invoices. That's 70 million invoices in here with a number of changes in here. That computed in real time in 23 seconds. So it's phenomenal performance. And then this just shows some screenshots of what is produced in CFO Lab. So you get a very, very detailed forecast. Here is a month-by-month forecast, looking 12 months in the past and 12 months in the future. And the key line on here is that blue line with the shading, which is your anticipated cash balance. So in this example, it's all good. It's above the line, and it's somebody in the bottom here showing our cash balance forecasted to peak at 2.9 million, and its lowest point 484,000. And then we do various other variations on that forecast. So we do a forward forecast by month and a forward forecast by week. Yeah, so Looker really nice. You can do some really good visuals. I mean, in terms of I'd say in terms of a visual, this is probably going to stretch most visualization packages, but we felt these were very effective in Looker. And just to finish up, really, we just put a note on Looker, and the things that we really like about Looker. And I think the foremost, it's just really enjoyable to use. Personally, I've used Tableau a lot, and I used to get quite frustrated with Tableau. I didn't really find it very intuitive, and we all just really like Looker. It's very, very intuitive. We actually look forward to building the dashboard piece. It's the reward for your hard work of doing your data science, your data centralization. It's really team friendly, so it's got very good integration with GitHub, which is great. On the performance side, it's highly scalable. So the main reason for that is, unlike other platforms, there's no in-memory merge. So what Looker basically does is it generates a SQL statement, a single statement, and that single statement is then executed on your target platform. So for example, BigQuery, rather than in other competitor products, they will say you're joining 2 large tables, they will execute 2 separate queries, and then it will merge that in memory. And that is what tends to lead to slow performance and really hampers those products in terms of scalability. Looker is just basically leveraging that brute force that BigQuery offers. And the final part of Looker that we really like is this idea of the single version of the truth. So with the LookML semantic layer, you can define KPIs in this layer once, and then they're then shared across dashboards. So if you've got multiple business units that are creating dashboards or self-serving via Explores, they're all using those single KPIs that develop once, as opposed to what we know tends to happen is everyone will go and create their own KPI, and before you know it, you've got 10 different versions of it. So yeah, so Looker, really, really good. And that was the end of the session, really, in terms of what we wanted to go through. And I think we just wanted to open it up. If anyone had any questions, please, yeah, please ask.
James, there was one question that we had earlier, which was from one of the attendees asking, how would they engage? What would we like to do next? How do they engage with us? So,
oh, right, okay. Well, all the attendees will get an email after the seminar, and there'll be some follow-up instructions there. So if you do want to reach out to us, if you have any specific questions, you'd like us to help you with your kind of modern data platform, and yeah, all the contact details will be in that email.
Thanks.
Okay.